Welcome everyone in our another episode of Sunday Prep. Welcome, Mr. Clancy. It's great to see you in this beautiful snowy morning.
Yeah, Father, it's good to be here.
It's been a really heavy week to all of us, not only because of the snow, but with the shoveling too. That was just amazing.
Yeah, my back
uh,
still hurts, Father.
Mine too, even though our Alonso is great with the plowing, but still we have a lot of snow around
Oh, yeah,
our
it's crazy.
property. So we do our best. Anyway, with the work that we do, we also have time to pray and meditate, right? And I hope you do as well. And in our this Sunday's reading, again we focus on our second reading, which comes from the first letter of Saint Paul to Corinthians, chapter 9. And in our preparation, in my reflection and meditation, I focus on the two sentences. And maybe I will start backwards so that I can explain why those two are on my shoulders. And I will say why. And this is the first one. Although I am free in regard to all, I have made myself a slave to all so as to win over as many as possible. You know, as a priest, and in the preparation for every day, I see that sentence like as a first, no matter which passage of the Holy Bible I do read, or the Psalms when I pray in the breviary. This is something that really gives me the strength and reminds me as well of who I am, because it was out of my free will, the choice that I've made to be a priest. It is not something that anyone imposed on me. Nobody was forcing me to become who I am. It was just the free will and my choice, and I do it because of the call, and I do it because I love it. So I do not really see any of the force that comes from the world or my parents or my friends, nothing like that. This is what I want to do and I love to do. And I know that I will not win the whole world. The grace of God is so powerful; it can do it, but I cannot. I'm only a human being. However, the mission that every single priest is sent, every single religious one is sent, is to win as many as possible. And they are not doing this, even though the preparation, theology, philosophy, all these years of studies, pastoral experiences, all of this, it's just maybe teeny tiny that you can probably we can see it in our life, but what we see is the grace of God that works in the person that we meet every day. And as I mentioned at the beginning, the first sentence, which is this: if I preach the gospel, there is no reason for me to boast, for an obligation has been imposed on me, and woe to me if I do not preach it. I mentioned last week that my spiritual director said that when I go to serve, it is not all, but every single one. And if I withhold myself even to one person, that is the sin, the moral sin on my shoulders. And so we were talking with Mr. Clancy, and I said, one sentence is on my shoulder, the other one is on the other one. I chose freely, and yes, this obligation has been imposed on me, and I know it is. And I don't want to say that I'm afraid of it, that it's just preventing me to say anything to anyone, or to go and preach, and especially in the world that is so much trying to condemn the church and the religious and the priests. No, that is something what Saint Paul was experiencing at the beginning of the church. Even though many were persecuting the church, many were trying to stop it. Well, the grace of God is more powerful. And what I want to bring to is today's first reading to the Hebrews, and the last very sentence: Jesus Christ is the same yesterday, today, and forever. And he is not changing, but he's changing me. He's changing the world. by the work of my hands and your hands. And and so the passage that I wanna share with you today is the faith is not a burden, is the beautiful call to change the world, beginning with myself, and then share it with others. I will just stop for the moment. Mr. Clancy, say something.
No, we've been we've been doing this for a couple of months now, Father, and we've both really enjoyed it. And I think we've always tried to aim to keep these little videos to like 10 minutes or less. And that's been great. There's a part of me for like a topic like this where I would be happy if we could talk for 45 minutes or longer, because there's a lot of thoughts that are racing through my mind and I'm trying to like shift through them and be like, okay, just whatever, focus. So maybe just quickly, the word that keeps jumping out to my brain is responsibility. That keeps coming to mind for me, because Father, you used the phrase, there's a kind of fearfulness, kind of when St. Paul uses the language, the burden that has been the preaching of the gospel, it's no reason for me to boast, but an obligation has been imposed upon me. I think there's a kind of feeling that when we read that with modern eyes and we hear these words, that it feels like kind of like an unfair thing that's been thrust upon St. Paul. It's been thrust upon us as disciples and followers of Jesus Christ. Like, oh my goodness, like I have to carry the weight of this like difficult thing. And on the one hand, I think it is difficult kind of to preach the gospel, formally as an ordained priest for yourself. But even the Catechism of the Catholic Church is very clear that the burden of responsibility, to use that similar language, to preach the gospel is on every baptized member of the church. So in a different manner, but we share that kind of obligation. But but the word that, again, it's coming to me is responsibility. And I think responsibility on the one hand can make us nervous and frightful because it means like I'm accountable for this thing. I have to do this thing. And if I don't do this thing, then there's going to be a consequence against me perhaps. But I think maybe in the most ideal way, when we think of responsibility or the language that's used in the reading, obligation, that it actually, in the language of the Lord, it doesn't mean that God is in some ways trying to like crush us down. Like God can't do it himself. So he's like, I'm frustrated. I'm kind of burnt out. Like, why don't you do it for a little while? I'm going to take, like, God can handle this himself. So the obligation that's imposed on Paul, and then by extension, us, the responsibility is actually, I think, maybe more appropriate, like a great invitation to share in the life of Christ more fully. So on the surface, I think it's frightening. And I agree with you. Like I said before we started, like, it's always been like a phrase, and this line has always haunted me in some small way, because I know, like, if I know the good news of the gospel, now I have this obligation to share. And if I don't, then again, consequences, and that can be scary. But I think in the more appropriate sense, when we look at Christ with eyes of love, to preach the gospel is yes, it's a responsibility. Yes, it's an obligation, but it's actually one that kind of elevates us up higher into the divine life, and it can brings about greater joy. So like, but I think that takes a certain amount of spiritual maturity, and it's not an easy thing. I'm not saying that I have that, or I think it's a constant struggle with us kind of in our human nature to kind of, put away our selfishness and our kind of laziness, and kind of say like, all right, this is what God's calling me to do. How can I bring about the gospel? And you highlighted, and again, I wish we had 45 minutes to go, so I have to stop talking in a second. But you highlighted the second part of the reading. I've made myself a slave to also, as to win over as many as possible, right? There's this idea of kind of becoming adaptable to all people and being available to all people. And for you as a priest, that means all of your people, all of the parishioners, all of the people in Rockaway, all the people in this parish boundaries, whether they're coming to church or not. And for me as a layperson, it means the people in my household. Like I'm bound to my 3-year-old son, even when he's driving me nuts. I'm bound to like my 9-year-old daughter, even when she like gives me a little bit of attitude about something. Like I am bound to be there for them, and for my wife, and for the people in my community. So we all have these people who we have this responsibility to be therefore where they're at, not just where I'm at. So anyway, I'm going to stop talking there. So we should probably wrap it soon. Sorry.
Yeah, no, that was amazing, and yeah, I wish we would have a little bit more time, but keep it small, keep it simple, and meditate upon. Thank you so much, guys, for today. Thank you, Jim, for your sharing with us. It's always beautiful to hear from two different perspectives, and I hope to hear from you as well. God bless you, and see you on Sunday.
Bye.